Good morning and happy Tuesday. It is September 24th, 2024. Thank you for watching Breakfast with Bridgett. Bridgett is off today, so you guys have me, Crystal Moyer, filling in today. We have a lot to go through. Of course, we have our eye on this big potential tropical cyclone that's just developing in the Gulf, in the Caribbean right now, expected to give us some effects later on this week. We're going to talk to Chief Meteorologist Candace Campos about that. Also, some communities that are flood prone preparing, to see the worst. We have a reporter working on that and what you can do to prepare as we head towards the end of the week. And also, we do have a phone bank going on all day. It started earlier this morning. We have some representatives from Supervisor of Elections offices across Central Florida. They are available to answer your questions that you have all the way until 7 p.m. tonight. So we have some information as that deadline approaches. If you have not voted or registered to vote, it is your time to do that. We also have a live interview with a doctor about PCOS Awareness Month, who's more susceptible to it, what are some of the signs and symptoms, and some of the treatment options. So we'll get to that as well. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get on to Chief Meteorologist Candace Campos. She has been busy at work there in the Weather Center talking about this potential tropical cyclone. Oh, we can't hear you, Candace. Your audio is out, I think. So you might have to turn that on. You're good? You can hear her? Okay. I can't hear her. So it looks like we're having some technical difficulties. Yeah. Well, no, let's not keep going because I can't hear you. So maybe you can pull up your phone and we'll come back to you in a minute. I know you have a hit on TV. She does some cut-ins during the morning, so we'll get back with you. This is important information that we all want to know, especially when it comes to our weather and how we're going to be affected here in Central Florida. So as soon as Candace is able to get back with the audio, we'll bring it back to you. But of course, when we're dealing with some storms potentially heading our way, a lot of neighborhoods concerned about flooding. There's some areas very prone to flooding, and they are taking steps right now to prepare for the worst. So we do have one of our reporters, Mark Lehman, who explains how one community is preparing for the storm.
We showed you what happened earlier this month when heavy rain in Orlando flooded out homes near Wadeview Park.
Came over here, and that's when I stood, and that's when I saw all the water just pouring in at this point.
Homeowners blaming an ongoing road project, but the city says the drains were just overwhelmed. Either way, concerns of a repeat are growing with the threat of more rain from an approaching tropical system.
That amount of rain could not have gone into those pipes. That's the problem.
Communities across Central Florida are bracing for a potential soaker later this week.
These are going to go on the backside of our utility room where we have a really low area that likes to fill up fast.
People living in Edgewater are filling sandbags after neighborhoods saw an influx of water September 14th. Flooding also continues to be a problem in Seminole County's Shadow Bay community. Last week, a judge ordered a homeowner to fix a drainage pipe she filled with concrete in April, but it's unclear if those repairs will be finished before expected heavy rains on Thursday.
And that was a wild story. That neighbor who filled that storm pipe, this couldn't come at a worse time because we could potentially have a storm headed our way. Right, Candace?
Right. You hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
It's funny. I'm still talking into the computer microphone.
But you're using the phone mic.
Oh.
I love it.
Yeah.
It's been a long morning for Candace, let me tell you.
You know what? And Crystal, what I wanted to talk about first off is this system isn't even named yet. So we are still talking about the potential of a tropical cyclone developing. The reason why we are still calling a potential tropical cyclone is because it doesn't have the official closed center that we need to have to officially designate it a depression or a storm or something greater. But the problem is that we're still talking about this no-name storm still yet to become a major hurricane within the next 48 hours approaching the Florida Gulf Coast. So the reason why we designate this potential tropical cyclone is because the National Hurricane Center is trying to get out all the advisories with enough time for people to actually do something about it.
Right. So not to panic right now, but you're saying be prepared.
Correct. I mean, listen, at the end of the day, the way things are looking at, we are 2 years from Hurricane Ian's event, which I can't believe has been 2 years. That system was taking a much tighter turn towards the east. That's why I went up Southwest Florida. This is going to be more of a Tampa north and west kind of zone here. So with that being said, our local impacts are going to be obviously very dependent on where that system officially goes. But at the end of the day, this doesn't look like it's going to be our big time storm here in Central. It's still going to be a big time storm, still going to be causing big time issues for wherever it makes landfall. But for us here in Central Florida, we're looking at squally weather, gusty winds, tropical downpours. There still will be kind of a yuck day on Thursday. But when we start talking about a major hurricane, we're not going to be at that caliber.
Okay.
So far. All right. So
I'm here with you.
Good. All right. Because I don't want people to say, oh my gosh, we only have 48 hours, a major hurricane's coming. Let's freak out. That is not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that we still have time to watch the system because it is still not technically an organized system just yet. Where that center finally organizes itself is where we will finally start getting some consensus in those computer models and more certainty in that forecast cone. So the last couple of loops here, you can see that that system is really starting to get its act going. We're starting to see not only convection on one side of that overall center of circulation, but we're starting to get it more wrapped around. And those are the signs that we are starting to see, at least satellite imagery wise. Hurricane hunters, we had two actually flying in. I think both of them are actually still in this morning, flying in that storm, getting a check on its health, on its structure, on its intensity. They also monitor the environment around it. What is it going to be approaching? What type of environment is it going to be moving in? So as of right now, the environment is not extremely conducive for development, but it will be moving into some prime real estate in the Gulf of Mexico for rapid intensification. That's because we have extremely warm ocean temperatures there. As it crosses through the Yucatan Channel, it will strengthen into a Category 1 storm. Then at that point, it goes into a Category 1, possible Category 3 between Thursday morning and Thursday afternoon. This is that rapid intensification that we are concerned about as it approaches the Gulf Coast of Florida, somewhere along the Big Bend, as far south as Tampa, as far north and west as, let's say, Panama City Beach. This is an area that gets inundated with storm surge. That is going to be one of the biggest concerns, along with those obviously 115 mile per hour sustained winds. But here in Central Florida, these are your takeaways. We are expecting this to become a major hurricane. The next name on the list would be Helen. Exact landfall and the timing and intensity still needs to be ironed out because, again, we are still talking about a system that doesn't fully have its act together just yet. So our local timeline will be that squally weather by Thursday. Thursday looks to be the worst of the day. Wednesday, kind of a transitional day, about a 40-50% chance, kind of a typical summer day. But then as we head into Thursday, that's when we will start to see more of the conditions start to deteriorate a little bit.
And Candace, can I ask you a couple of questions here? Because, people are concerned about this storm, and you are constantly getting hourly updates because it's still a potential tropical storm. You said there's some hurricane hunters. They're gathering information. You're getting advisory. So how often do you get updates? And of course, this is a good time to download that Hurricane Tracker app and our Pinpoint Weather app because you're posting all those updates. So we'll be getting those notifications, right?
Correct. So right now, hurricane hunters are in there constantly streaming information back to the National Hurricane Center. All that data then gets inputted into computer models, and those computer models will run every couple of hours. The easiest way for you to understand, like updates, big updates at least, something that might be more noticeable for you will be at 11 o'clock. It's at 11 o'clock and 5 o'clock is where we get those forecast cone updates.
Okay.
We'll get it. Now that we have watches and warnings in place, we'll get intermediate advisories, but those just update the sustained winds, the pressure, the current status of it. The actual forecast cone gets updated at 11 a.m., then at 5 p.m., then 11 p.m., then 5 a.m. So it's 11 and 5. So those are the main forecast cone updates that we will be sending out.
Thanks.
So that's the
Good
next
to know.
one. Yeah. Speaking of, when we do have tropical storm watches or hurricane watches or warnings in effect, we do get those more constant updates for its actual current status. And we are here actually under a tropical storm watch. Let me show you real quick that tropical storm watch. That tropical storm watch there is in effect as tropical storm conditions could be expected within the next 48 hours. That doesn't mean guaranteed crazy winds, that just means that we could pick up winds of excess of 35 miles per hour. Here in Central Florida, we see sometimes wind gusts like that in our daily afternoon showers and thunderstorms. So I don't want people going over the top here with preparations. Preparation should have been done anyway for the type of preparations you need for a storm like this with a forecast cone the way it is. So with that being said, could we see some power outages? Sure. We can see power outages during an afternoon thunderstorm as well. But it's that squally weather. It's that potential for a rotating storm that will be in the forecast, since here in Central Florida, we will technically be on the dirty side of that storm. Before we get anywhere into the tropics, we are still talking about relatively dry weather today. Temperatures will be in the low 90s. We are going to be upping those rain chances. Not the best weather on Thursday. I don't think we're looking at major hurricane impacts for us here in Central Florida. But again, things still need to be ironed out. The forecast still needs to have some kinks worked out. But I think we'll really get a much better idea as we head into this afternoon of what we could see potentially Hurricane Helene do on Thursday.
Thank you. I love how you explained everything, because sometimes people see a potential storm and they're, okay, everybody freak out. No, that's not what we're asking. You're getting constant updates and then letting us know.
Exactly. So 11 a.m., that's our next update.
Okay. I'll be up there 11 a.m. Thanks, Candace. Appreciate it. All right, there you have it. Make sure you download our WKMG Pinpoint Weather app or our WKMG Hurricane app. There will be notifications. Go ahead and enable those push alert notifications. You'll get all the updates on, updates on the storm, if it starts to develop, where it's heading. That's going to give you some good information without you having to go look for it. All right, so the next story that we're talking about is a big vote in Orange County because of Orlando commissioners are voting to annex thousands of acres of property, but some people aren't happy about it. A lot of it owned by a local church. So News 6's Treasurer Roberts explains what the issue is here and why some residents aren't happy about that move.
You guys do a good job, but you're not getting it right. You need to listen to the people. Let us vote.
Concerned taxpayers Monday took their fight to the Orlando City Council chambers.
Now, if Desiree Ranch's true effort was to actually conserve the land, they would not be doing this in the first place.
They're pushing back against an effort by the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints to annex 52,000 acres of its Deseret Ranch property to the city of Orlando. Their land is highlighted in red. It sits between the Orlando International Airport and the Space Coast. The Mormon Church wants to annex the portion that falls under the jurisdiction of unincorporated Orange County.
With the full development plan, what percentage of the 52,000 acres will remain environmentally protected?
The short answer to your question is there's no answer to your question, because we're not asking for anything other than to be part of the city rather than part of the county.
That's Gary Hunter, the attorney representing the landowners. He says there is no development plan, adding they are happy to work with city staff to create one in the future.
If you own a piece of property, you have a large say in what you get to do with that property.
Most commissioners are leaning toward approving the proposal.
If they're willing to follow our rules and regs, I don't see why the government should step in and tell them they can't.
But just one said no.
I don't believe it is Orlando's responsibility to clean up someone else's mess.
Kelly Simrad, an activist, says citizens' concerns are not being validated.
It's irresponsible overdevelopment and it should be stopped. It should not be promoted, and what this council did today is very disappointing.
In November, county voters can weigh in on 2 ballot amendments that would establish a rural boundary. Activist Lee Perry believes that's why the city is trying to quickly push this annexation through.
We, the people, want to have the ability to vote. This is our democratic process.
In Orlando, Treasurer Roberts, Getting Results, News 6.
The story is up right now on clickorlando.com if you'd like to learn some more information. And speaking of what's going to be on the November ballot, are you registered to vote? Well, there's only 41 days left until Election Day, and News 6 is partnering with Supervisor of Elections offices across Central Florida to help you out. We have a phone bank underway right now with members of local Supervisor of Elections offices ready to answer your question. The phone number is there on your screen, 888-436-6665. If you're watching us on News 6 Plus on your TV, get out your phone right now. Go ahead and save it on your phone. You could call right after Breakfast with Bridget. If you're watching on clickorlando.com on your cell phone, take a screenshot. If you have an iPhone, you could do that little screenshot feature and then call. They're going to be available until 7 p.m. tonight to answer your questions, anything about, deadlines to register. You could check on the status of your voter's registration. You can register. This is a good time to get that information that you need ahead of time. That deadline to register coming up October 7th. So now is the time. That phone bank, again, will be staffed until 7 o'clock tonight. So I just wanted to leave that slate up for you so you can go ahead and take a screenshot. If you forgot to take a screenshot, Breakfast with Bridget will be posted on YouTube. So you can just fast forward and get that number there. All right, we're going to take a quick break and we'll be back with a doctor to talk about PCOS for PCOS Awareness Month and some of the signs and symptoms. Welcome back to Breakfast with Bridget. Bridget is off today, so I'm Crystal Moyer filling in. And it's a condition that affects a lot of women, actually 1 in every 10. I'm talking about PCOS. So joining me this morning is Dr. Joseph Davis. He's a reproductive endocrinologist at Shady Grove Fertility. Good morning, Dr. Davis. How are you doing?
I'm great. Good morning, Crystal. How are you?
I'm doing good. We appreciate you waking up with us this morning to talk about PCOS. Some folks watching right now probably don't even know what it is. Can you explain what PCOS is and who it affects?
Definitely. And well, as you mentioned, it's 1 in 10 women are impacted by PCOS, otherwise known as polycystic ovary syndrome. And PCOS it's a bit of a complex situation. It's the most common cause of irregular periods due to not releasing an egg or not ovulating. And why that's a problem is that if a woman's trying to have a baby, she needs to ovulate in order to be able to become pregnant. Well, if someone has PCOS, they may ovulate 1 or 2 times a year sometimes, and that means that their chances of becoming pregnant naturally are quite limited. The other challenge with PCOS is that women, when they're not ovulating and they have PCOS, tend to be producing a lot of extra estrogen. And one of the things that estrogen can do is build up the lining of their uterus or their womb, which means they may have very, very heavy, painful periods and even have a slight risk of that lining of the uterus changing into precancerous cells. So it's a problem on a couple of different levels.
Well, with such a prominent condition, PCOS affecting 1 in 10, like you mentioned, is there a way that women can get tested for this? What are some of the signs and symptoms that we need to actually tell our doctors? I think we may want to check on this.
Oh, for sure. If you are a woman who's experiencing irregular periods, and by irregular, we usually define that as more than 35 days between periods or changes from month to month, especially if you go more than 2 months without a period. That's one of the most common causes, but it's not the only symptom, rather, of PCOS. One of the other symptoms we frequently see is signs of excess male hormone like testosterone. And this could be either acne or like hair growth, facial hair growth, chest hair growth, things that you would say, okay, this isn't quite, the typical for all my friends. And so those are the most common symptoms that someone may find themselves experiencing. And it's definitely a time to go talk to your doctor, see about some options, because there's some very simple, easy, natural things you can do to try to remedy it, but it really depends on what your ultimate goal is.
Right. And some women are probably thinking, if I do certain things that might prevent PCOS from happening, are there specific causes?
Well, and that's part of the challenge is we don't fully understand the cause of PCOS. We know that there is a genetic component, so it does seem to run in families. Not universally, but there's definitely that element. What we do know, though, is it's also related to excess weight, so being overweight, but not everyone with PCOS is overweight. However, those women who do have PCOS, who are experiencing these symptoms and are overweight, when they start to drop their weight down to a more ideal range, then they can actually have improvement in some of their symptoms, particularly the ovulation problems. Some studies have shown that if a woman loses even 5% of her body weight, which, depending on your overall weight, is not a huge amount of pounds to lose, then your periods actually start coming on more regularly. So one of the components is weight related.
hmm And one of the biggest effects from PCOS, as you mentioned, is fertility in women. For those not planning on having children, what else can this impact?
So yeah, you're right. And what I predominantly see is women that are looking to build their family. However, a majority of people who aren't looking to build their family, there's a couple of things we need to be mindful of. The effect of estrogen on the lining of the uterus over time, as I mentioned earlier, may lead to precancerous changes in the lining of the uterus. So there are medications you can use to either bring on a period intermittently to reduce that risk, or the most common one is women who aren't currently trying for a baby may look at things like birth control pills. Birth control pills basically keep their estrogen levels at a fairly safe point, and that way they aren't at risk of developing the uterine cancer. One of the other concerns with polycystic ovary syndrome is an increased risk of diabetes and insulin resistance. And, insulin resistance diabetes is unfortunately so common these days, but it's a specific correlation or connection to polycystic ovary syndrome. So things that you can do to try to avoid that is, again, maintaining a healthy weight, making sure that you're eating healthy foods. You can easily find a list of things that are more likely to be, problematic if you have insulin resistance or diabetes, and you try to avoid those foods. It's also associated with inflammation. And so some foods and some diets can cause more inflammation, more symptoms of inflammation than others. And then, another interesting finding is that vitamin D deficiency is associated with not only PCOS, but insulin resistance. And so, going to your doctor, having a conversation about all these things, making sure your blood sugar is good, your blood pressure is good, your weight's in the ideal range, maybe check your vitamin D level, and if needed, sort of address any of these individual components. But really, it's possible to treat this through natural methods.
And, talking about treatment other than birth control, what are some of the other treatments, maybe some extreme cases or maybe some not so extreme cases that we need to know about? What are the options?
So definitely, if you are experiencing the very infrequent periods associated with PCOS, methods to sort of thin that lining of the uterus by either medically bringing on a period, that's one of the keys. For those who are interested in having a baby, a lot of people worry, I need some advanced fertility treatments, but there's actually very simple things you can do to try to increase your odds of becoming pregnant. There's some very mild like pills that you can take that help basically release the egg or induce ovulation. Those are kind of your simplest treatments. And most people with PCOS, if they're following all these guidelines, are not necessarily going to find themselves needing anything major surgeries or anything like that. But there are occasions where if the lining gets too thick and it doesn't come, naturally, then they might find themselves needing to do some sort of evaluation of the inside of the uterus, and that could be surgery.
Wow. Well, Dr. Davis, thank you so much for your insight. I learned a lot this morning, and I hope our viewers have as well on this PCOS Awareness Month. Again, we appreciate your time, Dr. Davis with Shady Grove Fertility. Have a good one.
Thank you so much.
All right. So our next story is about, unfortunately, something that some people also have to deal with, and this is prostate cancer. You may know somebody who has one, and if you are a loyal viewer of News 6, you do know somebody, because unfortunately one of our very own News 6 investigator, Eric Sandoval, was recently diagnosed, and he's sharing his experience and what you need to know about prostate cancer.
So I just found out that I have prostate cancer. I'm a little shocked, but not really, because my dad had it. I don't know what to feel.
That was me back in January when I got the news from my doctor. I became one of the nearly 300,000 other men in the country diagnosed with prostate cancer this year alone, the second leading cause of cancer death among men.
Dr. Vipul Patel has now performed more than 18,000 prostate surgeries using the Da Vinci robot. In fact, I was patient 18,001. And if you think I was too young to get this, you're right.
Do you think there should be guidelines for younger men to get screened or get screened at a younger age?
So it makes no sense to me why you would not screen for the second leading cause of death in men of cancer when you screen for other things that are less more morbid in many ways.
Those guidelines are created by the U.S. Preventative Services Task Force. Now, right now, they recommend men ages 55 to 69 years old discuss the possibility of testing their PSA levels with their doctor, especially if they have a family history.
Ultimately, we need to do a better job in screening. We need to have better options for screening and for management. You know, I still think we have a long way to go.
In Orlando, Eric Sandoval, Getting Results, News 6.
We're just glad that Eric is doing okay. And with these stories about PCOS and prostate cancer awareness, my thought and my message to you is to make sure you're getting your yearly checkups. If you feel like something is wrong, you need to go get checked out and make sure that you are communicating with your friends and family to make sure that they are healthy. Because when we catch these things early, you have a better chance of survival. So thank you so much for joining us here on Breakfast with Bridgett. I'm Crystal Moyer, and we will see you same time, same place tomorrow. Bridgett will be back. Take care.